Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Punch, Kick, Choke Chat. My name is Sean Benson. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm so happy to be here tonight because tonight we're doing the hosts chat. And I love our guests, but really the root of the show started with the four of us, and Sensei Suino was our first guest. And that's just really what kicked all this into gear, and the chance to touch base with each other, every few weeks or every 6 or 8 shows is just such a delight for me. So I just wanted to say what a pleasure it is, and what a pleasure it is to have you here, because you might be watching on YouTube Live, which is super dope. You might be watching later on YouTube, listening on the podcast later, but you're watching on Zoom tonight. We're really happy, and we're going to get into that in a bit with our housekeeping. Every week I get to introduce Sensei Nicolas Suino. He is an 8th Dan in Iaido, a 6th Dan in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, a 6th Dan in Judo, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but for all the talk, it looks like it's finally going to happen. And I'm going to get to give you the biggest hug. And I think we're maybe going to, I don't know, my feet are going to almost touch the ceiling if that hug gets judo-y enough. Is that right, Sensei Suino? How are you tonight?
Man, I'm doing great. I was just turning up the volume while you talk because I wanted to hear all those accolades. Can't wait to see you. I knock on wood. I hope that all things continue well. If the truckers let us into Canada, I'll be up there at the end of this month teaching. I'll try to drag some JMACers up with me. Just got to button down the details, but it would be amazing to see you guys in person after a long time. Thanks so much for that introduction.
Always, Sensei, always.
Falls to me to introduce Sensei Randy Dauphin. I think virtually everybody on this call knows who he is, but I will say that he's a 7th Dan in karate and Yondan in Iaido, if I got that right. Try not to give people instant promotions on the call, but you never know. It dropped out my head a lot. But multiple time champion all over this great planet of ours, somebody who's really devoted himself to martial arts, a student of Hanshi Legacy who's on this call and who's responsible for us knowing each other, and really in many ways responsible for this whole chain of events that led to Punch, Kick, Choke, and Chat. Randy, it's so great to see you. I can't wait to train together. A lot of people have been talking to me about workouts this week, and so naturally your name comes up, and it's always entertaining to listen to people who train in kettlebells or CrossFit or whatever, and have them extol the virtues of their workouts. And I just always think of people like you and Don Pryor who make everybody else on the planet look embarrassingly puny and weak with your workouts. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm looking at my workout, which tonight was kettlebells and cardio. And what I did was 1 minute and 30 seconds on, 40 seconds off. But my goal was the 40-second break. Like, how far ahead could I get? Like, so, I'm going to give myself a maximum of 40 seconds. But if I've recovered in 20 seconds, then I'm going to get cracking at it right away. And I picked 5 exercises and thought I would do each exercise 5 times. 1 minute and 30 seconds on, 40 seconds off, max 40 seconds off. And I did skipping, Turkish get-ups, burpees, kettlebell clean press lunge, skipping again, and then kettlebell thrusters. And so that was 66 minutes, right? If you do the math on that. But it wasn't actually 66 minutes because I kept cutting into my break time, like a little bit as I was going to get through it. And it was so much fun. And the thing I always like about it, Sensei Suino, is I always feel like I've failed if I'm not like dripping in sweat and like on my knees. I literally threw up 2 times today as I was working out. Like I went to the bathroom. Okay. Great. Yeah, only on my break time though. Like I got it back together to come back out. Anyway, I like that. Sensei Suino, one thing I want to say is we've done this. When last time I came to JMAC in December, was I looked at how big the library had gotten at JMAC. It's huge. Like I can remember, I've been to JMAC Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3. I remember when JMAC bookshelf was like one puny bookshelf with like 10 books on it. And now it's literally like half a wall of. And so we started one at Christmas time after I left there. That's what the students gave me here as a gift, was a bookshelf and a bunch, like maybe 10 books. And then students keep bringing books and putting it on. And so I have this copy of your book, and this is what we were talking about as you're signing on. And then somebody brought this one.
Oh, I
And
love that
we were-
photo. I love that photo.
We were joking because I said, Francis Suino hates the new cover. He doesn't take the new cover. So anyway, if you're out there and you're watching this, try and find this one. Get a used copy of this. Get a used copy of this. Because when Francis Suino signs it for you, he'll be much happier when you present it to him. And when you present him this one, he's going to say, "Thanks for buying my book. I hate that."
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Asshole, get another one.
Wait, that's the one you sold me at JMax. And say, what does that say?
It's all I got, man. It's all I got. You're not getting my originals.
The inscription was like, "Meh, meh, meh."
Right?
Suino.
Yeah, crabby. Fuck.
So anyway, we are going to have a seminar in February this month with Sense Legacy, Sense Suino. It will be on the last weekend of this month. Tomorrow, there will be Facebook posts that start going out about it that will give you the price, the details, where you need to be, what you need to do. And I will tell everybody, it's going to be limited enrollment. So you're going to want to get in because we're not going to just open it up just because the environment we're in. So anyway, but if you beg, borrow, and steal, we might let 1 or 2 extra people in at some point, depending on who you know. But I am going to now introduce Sense Legacy, and I'm going to just mention the same things I always mention, which I don't want to be a cavalier about it because they're important. He's a legitimate 10th Dan. He was graded by somebody who is a legitimate 10th Dan, who is Anthony Sandoval. He's a member of the Canadian Black Belt Hall of Fame. He also has a book, this one. This is the original cover. I should have got the prototype, Sensei, that you hated and showed that one as well. Instead, you'll never get to see this one. You'll only ever see this one. Also a student of Harold Warden, a student of Benny Allen, pictures hanging in my dojo, student of Richard Kim, as I said, student of Anthony Sandoval. And I always say this, and I don't mean to be cavalier about this either, but also a student of Sense Suino's, and Sense Suino already said it. He's not cavalier about giving gradings out. And Sense Legacy is in the top 2% of all the people Sense Legacy or Sense Suino's ever trained because he did the study. And he knows that of all the people who have ever joined in JMAC, it's less than 2% that achieve a black belt. And Sense Legacy achieved a black belt from Sense Suino and Iaido. So he's in Iaido in Sense Suino's dojo. He's in the top 2% of people. Another thing I want to say is Sense Legacy and I had a fairly serious conversation today. And I said to him that a really cool death, an ultimate death for me would be if Sense Legacy and I jumped off of our bikes and stood back to back and we died in the same parking lot together with a whole bunch of other dead bodies all laying all around us. That'd be pretty, come on, does anybody disagree that that wouldn't be like epic and cool?
I guess I need to know how many bodies. How many are we talking about here?
How many do you think, Census Suino, how many
Oh my
bodies?
God, would that be fun to go out that way, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I love
I
it.
mean-
I love it.
Anyway, so that's my introduction for Sense Legacy tonight. And these things for me are always like the most chill, most fun. I just love having these conversations with the 4 of us. Sense Legacy, anything you want to say before we send it back to Benson for
Well, maybe you should
housekeeping items?
maybe somebody should introduce Benson.
Why don't you do it, Sense Legacy? Why don't you say a couple of things about Sean Benson?
You'll know more about the dates and everything.
Do you remember Sense Legacy the first time you saw him, or your earliest memory of him?
I think he was in the university.
He
Yeah.
was in the university.
You just go ahead and tell him all the things you know about him. But
Do you remember if you thought he was gay or straight?
Great question.
Yeah.
the only thing I remember is I remember thinking was, have I ever really met this guy? He's an actor, right? So he's pretty good at doing a good role on you, right? You know, like doing something and He's just good at it. So I often ask, I wonder if I really ever met him.
Yeah, it's
We've
funny you
talked
say
about that. Yeah.
You say that sense of legacy. I'm going to ask Suino, where is the most genuine moment you ever saw Sean Benson? Because we talked about it recently.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a brief few moments where I absolutely saw the most genuine, humble, and absolutely wonderful version of Sean, and that was at the beginning of his hour teaching on World Martial Arts Live. It was wonderful, and I mentioned it to Sean on a text or Facebook message. There was just this wonderful moment where, Sean, when you started teaching, where you just were absolutely yourself, no artifice whatsoever, a little uncertain at first, and you stepped into it in a big way. But that moment, that few moments while you're getting your feet under you were absolutely wonderful to see.
Well, I appreciate that. And you did reach out with that. And, it's funny, we have had this chat, Haunchy Legacy. And what's interesting is that it goes to one of the ways I look at other people as like being an actor. Let's say I encompass all those things that other people, including you, might sometimes be unsure are me, but those are all me. And so I remember once saying to you, you've only ever met me, because sometimes the hyper confident guy's me, but sometimes what you're talking about, Sensei Suino, that vulnerability, that's totally me too. And the swing is pretty big, which is why I do think I can act pretty well. But I think they're both insanely me.
Yeah, you know what though, Benson, I will tell you something that I remember when you were first getting into acting, fledgling actor. And I remember you and I and Scott Watson were in your dad's car, and we were driving to Minnesota to go train with Sensei Sandoval. And I remember when we got on the border side, we stopped at a rest center, and whatever, we all had a piss, we all did whatever, Watson and I came back. I think Watson was driving and I was sitting in the passenger seat, and you came back and you kind of pulled something, like you were crying, and you said some stuff about, I just got a ticket. I got a ticket for doing whatever. And Watson and I were like, what in the fuck is this guy talking about? Right. And then, so we were kind of quiet and we drove away. And then you were like, I'm just practicing acting, these guys. That never really happened. I'm just like joking around. And I remember looking at you and saying, don't you ever fucking do anything like that to me again, or I'm going to fucking rifle you in the head so fucking hard.
Awesome.
And that was it. Like, but you're a good actor in that moment. You definitely had me and Watson roped into whatever it was. And I think that's why Sense of Legacy says stuff about.
Makes sense. It makes sense.
Right.
Well, again, I don't want to make this too much about me and that, but it was a pre-Borat version of playing with a true thing. Like, I'm going to go to the Tim Hortons and just be a dick because I'm going to pretend to be that guy for a second. Then I had to one day go, no one knows you're joking, Sean. So now you just are a dick, which is A, great when the camera's rolling, B, not great when you have to interact with humans. By the way, I'm going to take this chance because you guys did throw it there. You senseis did. Today, the trailer for my new TV show just dropped, April 24th on Epix, which, believe me, is not the easiest thing to find. And some of you are going to be messaging me the week of, and I'm going to be like, let me get back to you. Epix is MGM, one of the most vaunted studios of all time's TV arm, and Billy the Kid, the show that I'm on, and that the trailer looks fucking amazing, folks. If you go check it out. Anyways, I'm super stoked about this. It was my premier job of last year, and if the response is great, it'll be a glorious year for me acting wise. But regardless, I'm just always happy to be part of cool shit, like riding horses, shooting guns, doing all that.
Hey,
Yeah,
Ben,
man.
didn't my movie just drop too? Barn Wedding? Didn't that just come on Netflix?
It did. Yeah. Barn Wedding's on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime, sorry.
Yeah, which is super cool. So that's a film I directed a few years ago. And we've talked about this, but Sensei bailed me out like you have no fucking idea, because we needed a wedding scene. It was minus 30 degrees. And I just didn't have enough extras. And the way our union works is you had to pay people a certain way up till 10 extras, whatever. Anyways, I just looked down it's one of these moments that makes my heart pound like softer. You look down this long drive of this outdoor place we're shooting, and like 15, 20 people just start walking up from the karate club and fill out the film. And I appreciate that to my dying day, Sensei.
Yeah,
cool.
so the Karate Club made Barn Wedding. it made Sense of Legacy, and I helped you out on
Yep. Filling out the gangland on the cover.
yeah, Gangland Undercover. Like, you got a lot of actors on this call. A lot of actors on this call.
Actually, to cap it all, maybe, we were doing this one scene where we were coming into a garage, and there was another motorcycle gang in there. And the guy pulls a gun on Benson. And he said, "Now, wait a minute." No. Benson tries to reach into his pocket. And they pulled out some guns and everything. There was a big scene that went on in there. And then the garage door opens up, and then we get to back out because we never had guns and like that. And on the way backing up, the director stood up and said, "You don't know how lucky we are to have him."
I appreciate that. That. You know, we let me pivot back to what the show's about, because I love this, but I'm getting a little shy, believe it or not. Is I dedicated my life to this thing. You know, we dedicate our life to this thing, and then, you know, I'm closer to 50 than 40, and you go, it's working out. I actually thank you for that, Hanshi, and everybody. I was going to say, I never get to say anything about Sensei Dauphin, and what I just want to say very quickly, went down for fight night the other night, Friday night, and 2 notes I got. Allegedly. Yeah. The Friday after we opened up.
Yeah, the Friday after. And, like tomorrow. Like you came down tomorrow.
Yeah. I just want to say, allegedly, I got 2 notes, and I won't bother sharing them because they were specific to the moment and the way we were moving. But I just hope you all have a sensei where you're fighting hard, you're hitting hard, people are getting cracked ribs, people are getting sore, allegedly. And your teacher will go, think about it this way. And immediately you're landing roundhouse kicks to the head. Immediately you're peppering people with shots from the inside. Different note that just, and I just on the drive home was like, God damn, I'm so fucking lucky, you know? And people are like, oh, you're so dedicated driving all that way and this and that. It's like 2 notes and the fight game changed. And I just want to say that, thank you, Sensei, for that. But
no problem,
everybody on this call, I pray you have teachers like that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ben. So we got to do housekeeping because Sensei Copeland's putting notes in and he's saying, am I going to get to talk to you guys anytime soon? So
great.
So,
Maybe.
We're getting excited over here.
Put your questions.
Housekeeping, we are sponsored by Legacy Shorin-ryu and Japanese Martial Arts Center. And if you want us to engage your club, we're happy to let you sponsor us. And Sensei Dauphin, tell everybody what that looks like for everybody but you.
It looks like I actually broke it last time because when we were talking to the champ, Ben, I wore a Terry Jiu-Jitsu sweatshirt because he was wearing one and Sensei Legacy was wearing one, but he was busting my balls about not having muscles. So I ripped it off right away and I made sure that I had a punch, kick, choke, chat shirt underneath. So yeah, I'll wear this crest on this uniform or on a t-shirt, and I'll wear the one Sensei Legacy is wearing, punch, kick, choke, chat. And Sensei Suino doesn't have a JMAC one, but I'll wear that one as well. And if you want to get any of that merch, go on Zazzle. You'll be able to find it, especially the punch, kick, choke, chat stuff, t-shirts, baseball hats, water bottles, anything you might need. Helps our show keep going. And if you want to sponsor us, Sensei Legacy or Sensei Suino, I can talk them into wearing your shirt. I can talk them into it. Maybe Sensei Suino's raising his eyebrows, so I feel like I can talk them into it. Yeah, so that's the stuff on merch, Sean, and
awesome.
We've already sworn a bunch, but I just want to say, you know, if you don't like the fact that we're gonna say fuck or shit, then I don't know. Sensei Suino, do you care?
Do I care if they don't like it?
Yeah.
I think it's part of the charm of this show, don't you?
Yeah. Sensei Legacy, do you care if somebody doesn't like it?
As long as I don't have to. You know.
So anyway, I think we should get into the meat of the show, Sean. And I don't know if any questions have come in, but Sensei Legacy asked a couple of questions before we started. So has anybody sent a question in yet?
No, just real quick, if you're on the call and you're new, we would love for you to be on video tonight when you're on the Zoom hosts chat. That's the benefit. So normally your questions will go to Robert, and then we'll ask them. But tonight, shoot your questions to him, and then we'll pop you on the screen. If you don't want to be on the screen, we get that. It's your call. We'd like to have you, but if you don't want to be, just let him know and we'll ask. But otherwise, let's get you as part of the show. So we actually do have a question, or we can jump into some ours, Sensei, whatever you think.
Go ahead.
There's one question that Sensei Legacy asked before we started that I think is an amazing question that most people don't contemplate, which is, when you've decided your time is done in a dojo and you're not going to go anymore, how should you quit? What is the right way to leave a dojo? Like how should you leave? Right? Because I mean, there are legitimate reasons to leave. A legitimate reason for me would be, I don't like this anymore. I just don't want to do it anymore. Like, I'm done with it. Like I did it for a period of time and I don't want to do it. How do you leave? So it's Sensei Legacy's question. So I'll ask him, who do you want to hear Sensei answer that question first? And we'll come back to you last. You can answer the question last.
How about Benson?
Benson, how do you quit a dojo?
For me, everything.
Or how should you quit a dojo? You never quit one. So
I mean, I've never quit one. For me, everything in this world that works comes through honesty. It just comes through honesty. You know, we have to be willing to be who we are, and then the things that are for us will show up. I think about this, like any relationship, if I present we talked about this earlier, if I present a version of myself that isn't me, even if you end up loving me, you're not loving me. So I don't win. So if I just say, hey, listen, I'm struggling with this, I don't like this, I got to go, nobody's going to disrespect that. Nobody's going to disrespect that. If I go backdooring or I pretend I like it more than I do, there's a great phrase, and I think it's even a Pamela Anderson quote, but she probably took it from somewhere, right? The worst thing you can do is pretend you care about someone more than you do. And to pretend you care about martial arts more than you do, you're only hurting people who are spending good time training you and your own time. So anyways, for me, it always comes back to honesty and one-on-one with your teacher. That's how I'd do it.
Who next, Sensei Legacy?
Nick? Sensei Smino, sorry.
Doesn't matter. I think we've earned the right. Let me give you two contrasting examples. I have a long-term judo student who, this is not about quitting a dojo, well, it kind of is. It's about taking the next step. A long-term judo student who trained at class and took a lot of private lessons for many years, then didn't show up for 3 months, and then called me up and said, hey, guess what? I've opened another martial arts school in the same town where you have JMAC. It wasn't judo, but I think that left something to be desired. I have another student who I will name, Radu, who's trained with me. He and his son have trained with me for many years. His son started when he was about 13, and now he's a hulking 21 or 22-year-old. Both very, very good at judo. And Radu, who is Eastern European in the finest sense of the word, called me up and said, Sensei, I want to come over and I want to go to lunch with you. So he had lunch. He brought a gift basket. It was a formal presentation. And he said, Sensei, I would like to start another judo club and I would like your permission. One guy, 3 months, disappears for 3 months, calls me up and says, I've opened a new dojo. Another guy came and said, I'm going to ask your permission. They both thrived. I like them both. I think one way is the right way to tell your sensei you're going to have another dojo. One way is less desirable. And as you said, Sean, I think honesty is really important. And unless there's a major falling out, I really think if you've had any kind of relationship with your sensei, you have to do it face to face, right? I think the best way, you're going to get all kinds of ways in your years and years, and your at least 30 plus years of teaching martial arts, you're going to get all kinds of goodbyes. But I think the most appropriate goodbyes are the ones where people make an appointment with you, sit down with you, look you in the eye, give you the reasons why they're moving on. And then you can give them their blessing. You can be friends. And I have some really good friends who have used to train with me who are now friends, but not dojo people. And that's usually because they left the right way.
Yeah, Radu's, we went to Japan with him, didn't we, Sensei?
Yes.
And his
And
son and I we share a birthday.
That is right. I forgot all about that.
Yeah. And I remember his son standing at the edge of the Kodokan mats, shitting his pants
Yes.
when there was like 300 black belts there, but also remembering that he was the first guy out on the floor to start doing some rendering. Sense of legacy, do you want me to answer at all, or do you want to take it?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So for me, I remember once there was a pivotal moment when I was a Q belt that I remember. Sense of legacy might not even remember it. He was teaching at that time in the High Street complex in St. Thomas. And I think I was a purple belt. And from the time I was a purple belt or white belt until the time I was a purple belt, I was training probably 3-4 times a week at least. And then I got this, I was in university and I got this job. And my job required me to be away for about 3 weeks. And I never said anything to Sense of Legacy. I just didn't come to the dojo for 3 weeks. And I remember when I came to the dojo after 3 weeks, Sense of Legacy pulled me aside and said, I really was thinking about you a lot over the last 3 weeks. And I was wondering what was going on, why you had not come to the dojo, why you had trained so much. Please don't ever, and he said, please don't ever do that again. If you need to be away, please just let me know that you're going to be away and everything will be good. That lesson has lasted with me like forever. Because now that I'm a sensei, I think about my students, and if they're not here, I wonder where they are and why they're not coming. And I guess when you quit, that's the one thing that I would say to every student is you shouldn't leave your sensei wondering, right? You shouldn't, they gave you something, right? Honestly, they gave you something honestly in the time that you were there, whether that was a month or whether that was 20 years, and you deserve, they gave it to you honestly, and you deserve the same to give the same honesty back, right? We can handle it. The people on this call, we don't need to be broken up with easily. Like, we don't need to be let down easy. You can just fucking say how it is, right? So I kind of have this rule in my dojo with my students where I say, look, if you come and talk to me and you tell me the reasons why you quit, I don't like it, I'm getting married, I'm moving to another country. If you come and tell me, you're always going to be welcome back, even if I don't like your answer. If you don't tell me, then you're going to have an interview with me to get back. We're going to have to talk about why you took my honesty, wiped your ass with it, and threw it on the ground, and why you want to come back and expect me to give you the same honesty the second time. So that's, I think, again, we're all saying the same things. Honesty, you got to come in, look at your sensei. If I've taught the students anything, it's to be brave in the face of, and I know it would not be easy to come and face me, face Sensei Legacy, face you, Benson, face Sensei Suino, and say, the thing you love the most, I don't like anymore, and I'm not going to do it anymore. But if you can do that, then I actually taught you something good. Like, if you can do that, then your training is not in vain and you actually learn something. So that's my answer.
If I can add one quick thing, just because the point you made supports it, is they also might not have the picture, right? So let's say someone's like, oh, I got to quit because now I'm going to be an hour and a half away. And Hanshi Legacy says to me, I didn't say I was going to quit, but you understand the idea. We'll go train with him. He's right there. Like, there might be a solution the student doesn't see. So that's the other thing about it, is if you quit honestly, yeah, if you hate it, great, bye. That's cool. But if you're like, I feel like there's this obstacle that's insurmountable, it might not be an obstacle, or like, I'm making this up. But what if a student's like, I can't handle all the push-ups? And you're like, what push-ups? And they're like, well, I'm doing 1,000 push-ups a night because I read about Masoyama. And you're like, you don't have to do that. Like, you don't have to do 1,000. You can, but you don't have to. They might be thinking about it wrong. And so I think it's great not to try and sell them, because who cares if they quit? You know what I mean by that. I'm not going to pitch a yellow belt, but they might be thinking about it wrongly, and the honesty will let us help maybe.
That's good. And so before, Benson, we go to whoever asked the question, I'd love to hear Sensei Legacy's answer to his own question.
Well, just walking away and not showing up again, the best reason to quit is because you want to. Just that. You just need to tell us, because if you keep going and you don't want to go for any other reason, then you start hating martial arts. Yes, you start hating to be there. So it's better if you don't want to go anymore. Your sensei, I mean, I've been through so many students, and a lot of them have quit, like thousands and thousands, right? So you're used to that. That's common to being a karate teacher, right? Well, even a little time that you spent in martial arts, you will have benefited, right? And your sensei pours a part of himself into you, like what Randy just said about him going away for 3 weeks. You think about it because you have hope sometimes for certain persons, and you start pouring more and more into them, and it makes a difference. Just to have enough common respect to go in and tell your sensei, I'm not doing this anymore. They'll understand. You don't even have to explain. But if you said, I thought I respected you enough and thankful enough for the things that you taught me, that I would come and tell you face to face. That is the bravest way to do it. If you're a man, you know what I mean in this, if you're a man, you're a man, right? If you don't go up and face other persons, you're not going to be successful in life. There's a lesson for you right there. You have to face the hard times. You have to face, the tough things to do.
You know, Sensei Lacey, I want to say that when my stepdaughter, who everybody knows, Cheyenne, she did Taekwondo before her mother and I were together. And then she came to one of your seminars, Sensei Lacey, the fighting seminar that you did here. And she kind of became a little bit encapsulated by our dojo and what we do. And I could tell she was really struggling with, I've been in this other dojo since I was a little kid, but I really like this other one better. Like I really kind of, and so initially I said, you can just train in both places. Lots of people train in two places. I do. I train in Legacy Short Route and I train in JMAC. And I'm honest with both of the instructors and everything works out good. But then at a certain point, she was like, well, I don't really want to train in that other dojo anymore. And even as her stepfather, I said to her, I require you to go to that other dojo and I require you to say to those instructors, thank you for all the training that you gave me. Thank you for doing the things for me that you've done. My stepdad teaches martial arts. I want to be a part of his dojo. It's part of our family, and she accepted that and she actually did it. And I thought that was a really good lesson one of the very first lessons that I taught her as my daughter and as a martial artist was to value what you had and go back and say thank you. Just go back and say thank you and be honest. I think it's really important. And when you were talking, Sensei, that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about Cheyenne and how she found her path to our dojo and how she doesn't have to feel weird about it. She can be here training and she can see her old instructor and she can see people from her old dojo and she doesn't have to feel weird because she did it the right way. I think. Good topic, eh? Good topic.
Yeah, good topic. Actually, you mentioned something that leads beautifully into our question. When you talked about, a student, you decide to put a little extra in, maybe they keep showing up. And Jesse, if you can throw the camera on Jesse, Robert, he has a question that kind of gets into that a little bit. I like this question, Jesse. Thanks for being here tonight.
Let's see this Jesse. Who's this Jesse person?
Who is this Jesse?
Hi, senseis. So my question is about teaching. So, one of the things I do is I teach a fair amount at universities and high schools, physics. But what I wanted to know is if you have any thoughts on how you decide what to focus on with a given student at a given time when you're teaching them martial arts.
Who, Jesse, are you directing this to first?
I'll go to you, Sensei Dauphin, first.
That's a great question. We all teach physics too. Everybody here. We just don't teach it. We don't teach physics the way you teach it, as scientifically, but we all teach physics too. I don't know. So when I approach things, Jesse, when students come in here, whether a little kid, I often think about things that Sense of Legacy has taught me. And so a couple of things I would say is, how did I learn it? Right? Like, how was it that I learned how to do this? Like, and I mean, like, literally, what were the words that were used to explain it to me? And then I try and just do it the exact same way that it was done for me. Because if it worked for me, then it's going to work for somebody else. And so I do that. I use the same words. I try and use the exact same methodologies. When I'm teaching, I try never to make it about me. Right? Like, at least now. In the beginning, that was harder, but now I kind of already know how to do this. So I don't make it about me when somebody comes in and they can't do it as well. I'm not like, oh man, I'm a shitty teacher because this person isn't getting it, right? They'll get it. I just gotta, right? So use the same words, same methodology that you use to get it. And when I get stuck, and I do get stuck, when I get stuck in Iaido or I get stuck in karate, I go back to Sense of Suino and I go back to Sense of Legacy and I say, look, I've got this real dumbass and they can't do this particular move. And this is what I've done. I've used your words. I've tried these two things for myself. Have you ever encountered this before? What should I do to, and they always give me the right answer. Sense of Suino says he had a teacher that said, I don't know, I'm going to paraphrase it. A genius is a person who never makes the same mistake once, because somebody else already made that mistake and you should learn from that and not pass it on to anybody. That's my answer.
Who next, Jesse?
Yeah, you're directing, Jesse. Who next?
Hanchi Legacy, please.
Well, again, I'm gonna have to go along with Randy. That's basically what a teacher is. It's somebody who knows how to make them do what they want them to do, right? So it takes a long time. It takes years and years. And then once you learn how to do it, you just automatically can see what the person needs by way of biomechanics. Even, it's sort of like being a mathematician. People, they don't think about that very much, but there are 10 numbers in math. 10. Can you imagine all the different things you can do with those 10 numbers? There are only 10 techniques in karate, and all of karate is made up of that. So when they go and use it in different things, like in katas and fighting, etc., at the beginning, if you ask Sensei Dauphin, when he'd come to me, he would ask me those. I would always give him the answer, if it was physical anyway, just by correcting one of the basics. It would shift the whole thing back into place. So, and then other than that, through your experience, you're in my schools, in my association, you're not a teacher till you're a fourth dan. The other guys are all like interns, so to speak, right? And then you receive 3 different levels of being a master: Renchi, Kyoshi, and Hanchi. And in the last one, it should take you 35 years to become a grandmaster. Those are figured out by the masters before me. So it takes a long time. That's all I can tell you.
Okay. Jester?
Thank you, Hanchi. Sensei Suino?
You mind asking the question again, just so I can kind of get my head into it?
Sure. If you have any thoughts on how you decide what to focus on at a given time with a given student when teaching them martial arts.
When I give people a belt promotion, they sit in front of me in Seiza, and I have their new belt, and it's like it's folded like into eighths, and it has paper wrappings around it. And I tell them, please remove your belt. And their responsibility when they remove their belt is to fold it like the new belt that I have that's wrapped in paper. And every belt, unless it's been a black belt that's been worn for 5 or 10 years, has a memory of what his life was like before it was unfolded. If you take off a belt that's been worn within a year or less, it still remembers the creases. Well, new students ignore that, and they try to fold the belt, and they set it down in front of them for a belt ceremony, and the belt spontaneously unravels. And it gives me an opportunity to tell the story that I tell every single time I promote people, which is, if you remember which way the belt wants to go, it naturally folds into the eighths with no trouble. You set it down in front of you and it stays exactly where it is. And I say, people are the same way. It's much easier to get people to go in a direction they already want to go than it is to try to force them into a direction they don't want to go. Which is another way of saying what the gentlemen before me have said. You get to a certain point in life where you see a student who's struggling with something or is ready to learn, and they may not know it, but they will tell you, right? If you teach long enough, and if you quiet yourself long enough, the student will tell you what they're ready for. Just like the belt tells you which way is appropriate to fold. So I'm sorry that's such a mystical answer, but you don't go in and force students to learn something they're not ready to learn, or at least you do that less, the better you are, and the more open-minded they are as students.
That was a
Hey,
good.
Swino, before Jesse directs it to Sensei Benson, that reminded me of what Sensei Corley, Grandmaster Corley, said when he was on the show, or it might have been a World Kabuto event or something, but he said, when a student comes in, don't tell them what you're going to do for them. Ask them what they want, why they're coming here, and what they're looking for, instead of telling them everything you're going to do for them. When you were talking, that's what popped into my mind. Jesse, I'm assuming you want Sensei Benson to answer now?
Hi, Sensei.
Right on, thanks. Jesse, I'm going to keep this one real simple. You know, I've learned through all the time I've been a student in all the things I do, and a teacher in all the things I teach, is that people can't adjust, nor can I, more than one, maximum 2 things at a time. So I can't make you better at more than like your knees going in the wrong direction, or your alignment's a bit off, and that makes the game relatively simple. Like, okay, and so the question for me, if I'm looking, let's say, at you in class and trying to figure out what note to give you, is what's the thing that will be the simplest and move the most things forward in one, maximum 2 notes, and then that becomes the thing I'll choose. And then the last thing is, there's a great idea in writing that when you're stuck on the micro, you go macro, and you're stuck on the macro, you go micro. So if you're struggling with a kata, Hanshi just said it, there's something with a basic, and if you're struggling with a basic, maybe moving through a kata will, let's put that in context. But for the most part, what's the one thing that'll move this forward for the next 30 minutes? Practice it a bunch till we meet, go on to the next one. Probably won't be a next one for a sec.
Thanks, Sensei.
Great
question. Nice to see you, Jesse.
Yeah, nice
Appreciate you
seeing
being
you.
here.
I like that gaming chair that you're sitting in. That's looks like a race chair. How many G's can you get in that chair? You're a physics guy. How many gravitational forces can you get when you're sitting in that chair?
Picture the scenes from The Right Stuff where they're getting prepared to go up. Thanks, Jesse. Robert, I know that you actually have a question you want to pop on with.
Yeah. There he is. The handsome guy. The guy behind the scene.
The guy behind the guys.
The guy who never gets introduced.
That's Robert, everybody.
Yeah.
Coming out of the shadows for one episode, and then that's it. My question is about plateauing in martial arts. So hitting that point when you feel like you've hit a barrier, you failing to keep making progress. And kind of 2-part question is, what strategies do you have in dealing with plateaus, and just how would you overcome them? Obviously you keep training, but other than just, keep plugging away, is there a strategy you have to overcome that plateau? And do you find it gets easier to overcome with more years of experience? And I'll we'll go reverse order of the last question. So we'll start with Sensei Benson.
I'm at a place in my life, Robert, where I don't have any mental plateaus. We've talked about this, like, since my mid 30s, there's nothing stopping me from wanting to get up and do this. The physical plateaus, I had a hip tweak for a sec. I had a forearm tendonitis. I had some finger stuff I'm dealing with right now. Those come along with just literally hurling our body against other people all the time. And for me, the plateau is about listening. And in fact, listening without stopping, but also listening without maybe going too hard. So I have to stop for longer, right? If I've got let's say a tendon tweak in my finger and I recover it properly, I have to slow down for 3 weeks. But if I don't recover it properly, I could have to stop for 2 months. So that for me is where the plateau idea really kicks in, is like Sensei Dauphin said this to me 25 years ago. I want to do this as much as possible for as long as possible. And my trick these days, because I would argue that my spirit can be stronger than my body some days, is how do I make sure that I don't do too much today so that I can't do any more tomorrow while not being lazy today? I don't think I have to worry about being lazy today. So it becomes about bumping up against my joints. My joints are fine. They're fine. It's just like pull back a little, add incrementally. You'll hear that word probably again tonight. Anyways, I just want to say that. So for me, getting past the mental plateaus was easy because they were all about things not to do with karate. And when I cleared the decks, it was like, fucking A, now we're just here, man. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's where I'm at with it.
Mm-hmm. Sensei Suino?
Are you asking how I would deal with my own plateaus in training, or how it would help somebody else through theirs?
Yeah, for you personally, if you hit a plateau in training, what are there good ways to overcome that?
Of course, there are competence plateaus where I don't feel like I'm getting better as quickly as I would like. But the things that really that have more drag, and there's not a lot of drag, but the things that have more drag are, I burn my enthusiasm for martial arts training is either a low grade fever, right? Or it's a 5-alarm fire. It's never nothing. And it's never, I don't want to do this ever again. Right. So it's a different kind of plateau, I suppose, than some people. But what's crazy is, if I have a plateau, if I'm not as enthusiastic as I want to be, I have a workout or a conversation with a few key people in my life, and several of them are on this call. Like, just having coffee with Hanshy Legacy, or going to his fight workshop seminar a couple years ago in Kitchener. Fuck, that was 2 years of no emotional plateaus. The shit that I was able to dine out on that, right? Or Randy comes down here and we have a couple conversations about evolution of personal martial arts. So for me, it's about the people. I'm almost 62 years old, and I've got people in my life like Hanshy Legacy, and then I'm taking karate from a 23-year-old kid in Tokyo by Zoom. Everybody in my life is that I've chosen to bring into my inner circle is incredible, and just a conversation or a workout or a cup of coffee with those people gets me out of my plateaus in a blink.
Love that answer. Hanshy?
I hate to say this, but I don't think, well, except for my age now, I unfortunately be more careful and everything. But in my days, I just kept training. I wasn't looking for belts. I wasn't looking. I just wanted to train, right? And I put my head down. I started training, and I'm just looking up right now. It just all happened. I never had to ask anything of anybody. So I don't really know, and I apologize for maybe trying to be a smart ass or something. I don't think I've ever had any. Have you ever seen me in a... I don't know what to say. I like karate so much all the time. It's almost like, to me, it would be like you would imagine eating maple syrup and ice cream. Loved it, all of them. No plateaus. Just one great big, long, slow incline.
Mm.
You just keep training. That's the answer, right there. I always said this to Randy, and he will verify it, that I'll take a smart guy over a tough guy. Because that guy will be able to overcome those. I just keep himself driving. It's a weak mind or something to that effect that will happen. Now, when you have natural plateaus where you just need more training for it to peak, you just delve into it more.
Mm.
But if you're having mental plateaus, like, I don't know if I like this anymore, that's something completely different. It's probably not going to be a 30-year member.
Mm.
That's it.
Yeah, so it's funny. I could build on everything that everybody said, which I think is 100% accurate. I think one thing Sense Legacy just said that I think is really important is this a mental plateau or is it a physical plateau? Right? Those, you need to distinguish that. If you're struggling, is it because you can't do the punch or is it because you don't have desire? Is it a will or a skill plateau? Like, which of the two things that you're experiencing? I'll tell you, Robert, I've reached lots of plateaus or struggles. Let's just call them struggles. And when I would drive down the road, as Cecilino said, gather people into your life, I would get in the car with Legacy. The answer was always the same. It was never a different answer. 100%. Sensei, I'm kicking everybody's ass. I won the last 5 tournaments. I feel fucking unbelievable right now. That's amazing, Randy. Keep training. You need to be in the dojo more. You need to keep training more. Thank you, Sensei. Back in the dojo. Sensei, I got my ass kicked the last 10 times I fought. I came 3rd in the tournament. I don't feel like I can kick properly. That's okay. What you need to do is get in the dojo and train a lot more, right? Like the answer is always the same, right? Like, it's always the same. And the only other thing I would build on, Robert, is for a person like you, because, you're approaching 30 years old, you're a 4th degree black belt, you're super highly skilled. Like everybody on this call would acknowledge that. You're becoming a very good teacher. In the beginning, you make exponential progress. Like in your first 4 or 5 or 10 years, like you just can like leap and leap and leap and leap. And then all of a sudden you get to this point where it's like you're bumping up against it. And then I think people plateau because they don't become satisfied with incremental progress. They don't become satisfied with just doing just my low block, just a little bit better. Like just only my low block. Today I worked on my low block and I made it just a little bit better. And I haven't plateaued because, well, nobody else can see it. I know I did it and I know I feel good about it. And I know I made some progress today, right? I guess the last thing I would say is really listen to your teacher. Like the last time I went to JMAX, Cecilino said to me on my draw in Iaido, he said, Randy, I still feel like there's a little bit of a residual wind up when you're drawing. What have I done since December 18th in my Iaido? I've worked on that residual. I've tried to, so that the next time I go, I'll know if he doesn't give me that correction again, he gives me a new correction. Inside, I'll be like, okay, incrementally, I eliminated that one tiny thing and I've not plateaued. I've made a little bit of progress.
One thing I just want to add on here, for people listening, I mean, most of the people on the live Zoom call will know this, but like when Hanshi Legacy is saying, get back in class, like double as much, or Sensei Dauphin would say that to you, Robert, those teachers don't charge more if you come 5 times a week versus 2 times a week. It's for the student and for the fullness of the experience in the room. Nobody's all of a sudden benefiting financially. Like, I know I don't need to say that, but there are teachers who'd be like, you need to train more. And it's like, don't you charge double if I come again? And they're like, yeah, but you need to train more. And who knows if that business model works for them? Great. That's not what we're talking about. It's literally just great. You're walking through a new door, fucking run through that door. We're waiting for you.
Yeah. If you're plateauing, I like that saying. If you're going through hell, just keep your foot on the fucking gas pedal and get through it as fast as you possibly can. Right?
That is awesome.
There's no need to coast through hell. You might as well just get through it.
Mm.
Good question, Robert.
Yeah, lots of wisdom. Thank you.
Yeah. Next time you need to put a brown paper bag over your head before you turn the camera on.
For the opposite of the usual reasons.
Yeah.
The leather mask. What?
Oh, hey, wait a minute. Not that kind of show. Not that kind of show.
Is
I'm
it?
dropping off
Yeah,
fast.
it's- That's PKCC après midnight.
After
Um,
hours, that's right.
We have a great question coming up, and I'm really excited to hear the answers. Thanks,
You're
Robert.
right.
So if you can throw that not to Andrew. Andrew doesn't want to be on camera. We super respect that. From Andrew Percival, so I'll assume the directing traffic. How has martial arts shaped your belief or thinking about death? So Hanshi, if you don't mind, we'll start with you, and we'll go then Sensei Suino and Sensei Dauphin.
Hey, Sean, I just want to say Andrew, I think, is at work, which is why he doesn't want his camera on. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
not that he's bashful about being on
Yeah.
camera.
Thanks for tuning in from work, Andrew.
Well, I think that reality, martial arts brings you down to common thinking. We all know we're going to die. So the thing is how to face it. And when you're sure of yourself, everyone who's been on there has died. So I just think you try to do your best while you're here. Try to keep your mind off of that just by simply training. You keep training. You will always be healthy until it's your time. That's the good thing about martial arts. I'm an older guy, and I still spar. Not very much, I agree, but I still feel good about it. I still feel I have a future where guys that are maybe my age, and I feel bad about even saying this, but maybe in a place where they can't get around in a home, or maybe have some maladies, which is very, very unfortunate. But when you train, I'll just use myself, 51 years, and your blood is being filtered all the time, your heart is pumping, lots of blood flow to all parts of your body. Martial arts does that. Most martial arts, Itosu, Matsumura, they all mostly die in their 80s or 90s. And now that natural life, the way that our medicine and our doctors are keeping us to live longer, and if you train, you're going to live longer than those people as well. So, I don't look at death. I just let it come. When it knocks on my door, I'll walk through. That's all there is.
Thanks, Hanshi. Sensei Suino.
Yeah, I can pick up on one part of that, which is, Hanshi said, you do the best you can in your life while you're living. And by the way, I'm going to tee up a topic a little bit later on this, on that same note. But what I think about every day is I want to live up to my potential, and training in martial arts has given me some systems for doing that. And it's also taken away a lot of the fear of doing that. So many people sadly are stuck doing something they hate or never living to their potential because it's fearful to take risks or to take bold action. And I don't have those fears anymore. So it makes it more possible for me to try to live into my potential. That's the only thing I want, right? It's they say the man who dies with weapons unused, right? With arrows still in the quiver has wasted his talents. And that's all I want. I don't know when death is going to come, but tomorrow I want to do better than I did today. And the day after that, I want to do better. And I don't want to be scared. So martial arts give me the tools to do that.
Badass. Sensei Dauphin.
I really like that. I mean, I think about all the time, if you could live a life how much would be enough? How many years would you go? Would it be 100? Would it be 200? Would it be indefinite? For me, it can't be indefinite. It would be indefinite if I could have Christine in my life forever, indefinitely. I could have all my martial arts in my life indefinitely. I could have you, Benson. I could have Sense of Legacy. I could have Sense of Suino. I could have my kids indefinitely. Then I would never even contemplate facing death. But I think the fact that I know that I love Sense of Legacy, I love Sense of Suino, I love you, Benson, I love Christine, I love my students, I love karate, but I can't have it forever, means I need to be able to face that. And I need to train myself to face that. And I don't know, everything is theoretical that I'm saying. I don't know. Like, I really don't know. I really hope I can face it, like Sense of Suino just said, with bravery and not with fear, and make it about me and not make it about everybody else, and not try and, if I could live and die, if I could die and my death can uplift other people, that to me, I think is what I would hope for, right? That my death could somehow leave things better and uplift people. Yeah, it's a really like provocative question. It's one I'll probably continue to think about. I mean, he didn't ask this. It's how you think about death, and that's how I think about death. I also think about how I would like to die, which goes back to the beginning of this conversation. Like, I'd love to fucking jump off of my motorcycle and get back to back with Sense of Legacy and do something really important and just die back to back with somebody that I really love, doing something that I love to do and helping everybody in some way. Not meaningless, not a meaningless death. But I don't know, I think every day we live, and I think every day we die a little bit too. I think it's both, right? I think every day we're, especially at our vintage, right? Like every day you die a little bit, but you know, you're also trying to live a little more every day too. You die in one way and live more in another, I guess.
Thanks, Sensei. For me, you know, if I look like what you said about how, Andrew, how the martial arts has shaped my beliefs or thinking about it, even going back to like the beginning of the Zen idea, which was so attractive to me. Like, I wanted to learn how to fight, but I didn't even know what Zen was. I just wanted it. And it was real early on at the university where Hanshi would talk about, like, when you're in that Kibadachi and you're throwing, you know, the 500th punch of the night and you haven't even got on to high blocks yet, you can't be anywhere but in your shaking thighs. You can't be anywhere but in the pain of that moment. And I remember feeling that and hearing that. And, you know, when I think about what martial arts taught me, it was to be in the moment. And I'm super imperfect at it. But the other stuff I love to do when I'm not doing martial arts, like acting's all about in the moment. The mountain biking I do when I'm jumping 6-foot gaps, you better be in the moment. Racing cars, riding motorbikes. Like, I've always sought what you could call the moment. And that began with martial arts, or maybe earlier in terms of the seeking. Martial arts is where I first found it. Anyways, so for me, the answer is, I don't want to, like, I would love to live like probably 200 years or something. Like, I probably would let the vampire bite me. I feel like I'm just getting started, like just figuring a couple things out that are foundational to what life's going to be. And I'm like, no, I want, you know, so that's why I need to balance that, Andrew, with the moment. Is like, great, clock ticking. Yes, I'm getting older. It seems so fucking bizarre to look at 50 as the next milestone. That makes no sense to me. Train, be in the moment. Train, be in the moment. Train, be in the moment. So that's the best thing I can say, is that in many ways I'm staving off death with martial arts in all the health ways, but also in the Zen aspect. Like, it's just a moment, man.
That's a good question. That's a very provocative question. That's a good one for all of us to contemplate. There might be other questions coming in, but I'm really interested in, since Suino said he had a topic he wanted to talk about later, and we're already at 20 to 10, so I don't know how much later we can get. So maybe Suino before.
Isn't Roy Copeland out there somewhere?
Yeah, but I think we should let Suino ask his topic before we get to Sensei Copeland.
I can, but it might be a night ending. It might be a night ending topic. And I know Sensei Copeland's been here since the beginning. Didn't he have a question he wanted to tee up earlier?
I don't
Sensei,
know.
Sensei, if you don't ASK, you don't GET. What do you got for us?
Yeah. There's some questions in the chat I see. He didn't.
No, I don't think he dropped a question in the chat. I think
No.
I think he might have just been, riffing with this a bit because we were
Okay.
rambling.
Just trying to get on.
The one
Yeah.
question he did ask is where can he get the merch? Which I'm excited about that he asked that question.
Yeah,
want me to-
baby.
I can drop a link in the chat.
I think
Can Robert do that?
Robert already did it, I think.
Okay. All right. All right, everybody on this call, go to Zazzle and check out the PKCC swag. And if you're a JMac fan, we got tons of swag. Some of you men would look real sexy in our new JMac leggings. I'm just telling
Yeah. So Sensei Copeland said he didn't have a question. He just wanted us to get started. That's all he
We need
said.
somebody to crack the whip.
Exactly. Yeah, and we can laugh about it because he's not standing in front of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'll make idle threats because thousands of miles away. So my wife and I never watch Netflix, but my wife and I are watching this series called Marco Polo on Netflix. And it's about the grandson of Genghis Khan and how he's trying to rule over the Mongol Empire and has huge battles with China. And Marco Polo ends up getting kind of dumped in his lap and they become confidants. And so they're talking and the Khan says, I was about your age when I knew. And Marco Polo said, knew what, sire? And the Khan said that I had to become the man I wish my father had been. And that, I was blubbering when I thought about that, because I think we're all human beings and we're all flawed, some more deeply than others. But as a leader of people in the martial arts, it's so important to me that I live into the substance of the classical promise that we deliver, right? That as leaders of our dojos, we say, we are going to teach you classical values of integrity, of loyalty, authenticity, and discipline, hard work. Here are the martial arts techniques, but I've had mentors in my life who are very good at that level, the surface level, but who are very flawed human beings, right? Womanizers, alcoholics, spendthrifts, manipulators. I'm exaggerating to make a point, but and my father was a deeply flawed human being as well. And so for me, it's become really clear in this stage of my life as a leader that I want to become the person I wish all my martial arts teachers had been. Right? I want to become the person I wish my father had been. I really want to become that person. I don't want to do a surface dance about it. So, I can teach a great dojo, teach judo, teach great kata, espouse the values, but I also want to live into that in my relationships. That for me, that's really heavy. But it's also really inspiring. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that idea. That are there times when you reflect on your legacy, whether it's your personal legacy, right? Your parentage or your grandparents, your ancestry, or your martial arts legacy, the people that came before you, and you think, they gave me all of this, I wish they had been that. And does that influence your path as you go? Obviously, it's hard to say if somebody's your teacher right now, but or maybe I'm full of shit, but for me, that's a very powerful idea. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about it.
Direct traffic for us, Sensei.
Well, let's start with you, Sean, since you're the first one to speak up.
Okay, great. Shit, I think I knew that was going to happen.
Don't volunteer.
Look, I love this idea. I love it so deeply. You know how self-love, self-care, growth out of our childhood trauma and our subsequent probably own bullshit behavior that's not authentic to us, but is our push-pull from that trauma. That's, to me, the most fundamental path that we can walk. And then the tools we use, something like a martial art, to keep us in the light, in the healthy aspect of that. That's why we're all here. But below it is this need, whether it's conscious or not, to heal. And how many masters have we had on here who reflect on, the sensei gave me what my dad didn't, or the club gave me what my community didn't, or whatever. We know how common that is. And for me, when I think about, let's say, my dad, it is conscious. I love my dad. I talk to him almost every day. When my mom passed, I openly at the funeral was like, I am a mama's boy. I am good with it. It doesn't mean that I don't think he has and she had significant shortcomings relative to how I want to live my life. I don't think my teachers have significant shortcomings, but they're human. And so therefore, I just innately take what they gave me and believe I'm moving a certain ball forward. I think it's our job. And with Sensei Dauphin, it's an interesting one because he is right next to me on the screen and we're almost the same age and he's a significantly better martial artist than I am. There's still something there for me to move the ball forward because that's my job. I want Alden, my second degree black belt. We had a conversation about this the other night in the car. I said, I can't wait till you're my age and you're better than me. Because then you're doing your work and I'm doing my work. And I could see him kind of take it in and know that I was telling the truth, but I mean that. And I should be more complete than my father. And then my eventual kids, or the ones that I'm not aware of yet, they're popping around out there, are going to be like, yeah, my dad was pretty good, but he lacked this, this, and this, and I'm going to go fill that in now. And I would even go one step further before I pass the ball on. You're innately going to be enough like your teachers or your parents that you don't even need to go, I'm going to hold on to these aspects. You couldn't let go of all the aspects of your ancestry if you tried. So you don't even need to over honor it. I tend to be a guy who's like, don't be too proud of things that you have no say in. You'll already be that. The world will see it. So then move that ball forward healthily and complete that system of trauma recovery, moving the martial arts ball forward, handing it to the next person. I love this. I get excited at this idea.
Randy, what are your thoughts on the idea?
Number one, it's all relative, right? Like it's all relative to you. You see your dad's flaws. Other people would love those things about him that you see as flaws. They would look at him and say, I love that guy. I want to have another drink with him. I want to shoot another game of pool with him. And I aspire to be able to do those things more. So, but I don't think that's what your question really like. I guess I just want to mention that, right? Like, my mom was as poor and my dad poor as church rats, right? And my mom's only goal was that I and my sisters would get a post-secondary education and live a better life than she lived. And she was a flawed human. And I take all of her flaws and everything and I keep moving forward with it and trying to make it better. And now you see Sydney and Benny and Sammy and Cheyenne and Stephen, and they're all going to be moving beyond my flaws. And I just think that's the evolution of life, whether you want it to or not. And especially if you're a self-aware person. Like the fact that you're even asking yourself that question tells me that you think a little deeper than the average person who just wants to be comfortable, right? Like they just want to sit on the sofa and watch TV. And and I guess the final thing, I'm not going to talk too much more about it, Sensei. Like, I think it's not my job to really think about you and Sensei Legacy and your flaws in that way. I do know what they are. Like we've talked about them. Like Sensei Legacy has talked to me about his own flaws. You have talked to me. You've identified them as good teachers and said, these are things I can't do and you want to be careful of them, right? So I've already gotten that help from those people. For me, it's not about like making it different. It's about taking what you guys have shown me and just trying to be more, incrementally more, so that the next person can be incrementally more. And we can keep asking this question generationally and not try and fix it in one generation. It's not up to me to fix that, right? Alone, by myself. It's up for me to fix it a little bit, teach a couple students and hope they fix it a little bit. And then it just keeps being passed on that way. That's what I think. That's the thoughts I have anyway. And I don't know if that's right. I look forward to sitting at your kitchen table and hearing what you have to say about my answer.
Hachi, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, well, I'm just going to give you a little story instead of giving any direct answers. When I was young and I started out, I used to get into a lot of trouble. My parents were good parents and everything, but what they gave me through guidance and their DNA. Your DNA, your DNA is probably a good part of what the reason why you're a martial artist. A lot of people just eye, hand, and foot coordination, very, very simply. So I was growing into a man trying to, and also another thing is the being in the now is always in the now, which is this moment. But in the now, from my parents, were during the war. So sometimes my dad couldn't even be there. He wasn't there. He was in Europe doing different things. So I grew up really without the presence of my dad, and I was looking for something to belong to, right? Then I got sort of, as Randy says, I got in with a tough crowd, and I ended up being an outlaw biker, not the outlaws, but an outlaw biker. And it didn't take me very long to realize that really when I was looking, that this wasn't going to be a good life for me, where it may be for somebody else, but it's not going to be a good life for me. So I started nosing around, trying to find something that would forge my manhood, my being into a better place. And that was the day I put my foot into the dojo. It completely changed my life. That's what it's for. That's what it's for. Think of those Shaolin kids, those kids kneeling out in front of the temple who had no food, nowhere to go. And they take them in and they stay there all their lives. How healthy, smart, and everything. Martial arts is either going to pick you up and spit you out into the street, or it's going to take you in, and you have the right attitude. It will make you the best that you can be. That is just one of those things. It's 8,000 years old and has never blinked. Think about that. You want to help your manhood, your womanhood, your being to grow in the right place, not just grow, but grow in the right places. Make yourself, your family, your children, your neighbors, everybody respect you. Try martial arts. Become a real man and a real woman.
Sensei Suino, something I would challenge you to think about a little bit would be when you contemplate that question, only you can answer that question for yourself. Nobody else. I don't know your dad, so I never met Yamaguchi Sensei. So anything that I have would be an idealistic version of that. So when I ask the question of myself, like if am I a better version of a sensei than Sensei Legacy or Sensei Suino? Like I only need to answer that to myself. I don't need to answer that to anybody else ever. And anybody who said you are or you're not, they would need to know you and I and Sensei Legacy 100% exactly the same to be able to even venture an opinion on that. So I think it's a great provocative question, but I think you need to make sure that you can answer it for yourself. Most importantly, right? That you can feel that you've elevated yourself to the level of what you thought you wanted every sensei to be, right? I think that is a really important thing for you to do for yourself and all of us.
Do you have any thoughts on your own answer, Sensei Suino?
Well, yes, many, but one I'd like to just mention is that it's a great prism with which to view my interactions with the students, right? So if I'm the leader, like the Khan was in the movie, if I'm the leader, I'm making decisions about the life of the dojo that affect, the nation of the dojo, that affect that. Sometimes those decisions are hard. And then I'm also making decisions about how to interact with people. And I think that's really where it's heartfelt for me, is when I'm sitting down with one of my students, having a conversation about their training, their future, their leadership. It's critical that I'm in the moment. This thought has come up several times tonight. I'm in the moment, really listening, really supporting, bringing them the best part of myself when I'm interacting with my students, right? So for me, that's a lot about what it means to live into the shoes of what I would hope a teacher would be, which is to truly, authentically wish the best for my students and give them 100% of myself when I'm interacting with them. So that there's I'm trying to make them work hard to find the part about me that let them down. I'm doing that for myself, of course, not for them, but I've been having these meetings actually with all of my black belts at JMAC over the last few weeks, and everybody to a person just feels like our dojo is a jewel. It's this exceptional place. Very few places, and I'm sure, I'm happy to say that you guys run training this way too. People are just stunned by the authenticity and the blessing and the good people there. So it's a big responsibility, right? And somebody that doesn't live into that scenario I just gave you might let that responsibility go or underestimate how important it is to try to preserve that wonderful thing that we've got in these great dojos.
You definitely do sense it, and sense of legacy as well. You guys definitely bring what you're articulating, that you hope you walk that walk. You're not just talking that talk, you walk that walk. Sense of legacy walks that walk. I know it. I've known it since I was a white belt under you guys, and I know it now as a higher ranking student under you guys. It's easy for a student to say, but you guys are doing a great job with that. And the different senses on the call should really go back and listen to this last 10, 15 minutes and ask themselves, because it goes back to what Benson said, I think, right? Which is why are you doing this? Okay, you came double the time, you pay double the money, right? Everybody on this call will laugh when we say that. And that's why we're asking that type of a question and talking about that type of a thing, right? You said it as well, Sensasuino. If you're lucky enough, you will get to be a link in the chain. You will get to step into inheriting a system and being the person who helps to pass it on. You and Sense of Legacy are definitely that thing, unequivocally, period, exclamation. I'll fight anybody in here who wants to challenge me on that statement. And if I lose, I'll be happy to die that way, fighting for that thought.
Off the motorcycle. Well, so in other words, I should get back into the dojo and start training, is what you're saying.
Legacy Charleroi is a very special place, and JMAC is a very special place. And there's no two places on the face of the earth that I don't want to be more. Those two places are the two places I love to be. And super grateful forever.
If I can tie this around to what Hanshi talked about a little first before the call, but then he brought it back in his answer about quitting. The reason to do this is because you feel like it. And the reason to leave is because you don't feel like it. And there's layers to that, right? You're talking about feeling like you talk to your students and you go, what am I maybe missing? That they'll look at me and go, I need to be the teacher he wasn't. But even the idea that you're on that path of pursuing excellence and filling in gaps before they have to, that's because you feel like it. That's because that's the type of person you are. And, even when you just said again, oh, I guess I should get in the dojo, because that's how you hear that answer, because that's what you feel like doing. And I love that, because it's there's that idea of turtles on turtles' backs being the universe. And someone's like, yeah, but what's below that? And the answer is it's turtles all the way down, baby. No matter what we do, we can't be, yeah, but I feel like being that kind of person. Yeah, I feel like having this structure for learning and growth. Yeah, and and then I think the big thing is, where does evidence come back and let us know how we're doing? So if I just feel like eating chips and watching Netflix, the evidence will come back that I'll gain weight, I'll lose my martial arts, and probably won't have much of a life, but I can feel like it. or the motor kicks in and goes, I don't feel like being this kind of person. Who knows? Because none of them are right answers. It's just what's right for us.
Man, watching Netflix and eating chips is good too. Like that's,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go watch that series.
Sensei, I see you making a bit of a face on that one.
Well, this is, you know, it's we got to wrap this up, but I might take this up again because I think whether you train or don't train is because you feel like it. I think everybody who's mentioned that is absolutely right. I think when you accept the mantle of responsibility, when you step into when you're Kublai Khan, or when I'm me and I'm standing on the abyss, reflecting on my life, and I remember behind me the skeletons of my ancestors, and I look ahead into the future, and I think about the skeletons or the future, my progeny, and I mean that physically and in the martial arts. It's not about whether I feel like it anymore. I think it's a huge responsibility. If I'm a pay more because you want to train 5 times teacher, I don't fit in that. Like, I take it a lot more seriously than that, if you see what I mean. Like, if I'm going to step into that and I'm going to stand on that cliff and have the vast ego to tell myself that I'm a part of this incredible tradition that not only existed for 1,000 years before me, but is going to exist 1,000 years after me, it's a big responsibility. So this is, you know, obviously a very personal view, but to me, it's weighty. I do feel like it, but I think it's not frivolous. I think there's a lot more to it. If you're truly 1,000 years from now, they look back on that chain, right? I think it's a responsibility to be a very strong link in that chain and not a weak one.
Yeah, a question I would say, Sensei, is, you'll laugh because you were there. Put your hand up if you sold your house to get the funds to get a dojo so that your students could walk in the door, and right, like, put your hand up if you gave up your own personal comfort and security so that you could continue to do this, not for your own benefit. I say it all the time. Like, you could do it a lot easier for yourself. Right? Like, if you just wanted to teach Iaido, or Sensei Legacy wanted to just teach karate, and it was only about you, you could do it like a lot easier than how you're doing it right now. But instead you choose the harder way because of the mantle of responsibility and being in the link in the chain of having to find somebody to pass this forward to. Like, Sensei Legacy and I just talked about this like a few hours ago, and I said, like, it is really weighty when you start to think about, and now we're, okay, one day I'm gonna die. Will there be a new Khan? Will I have been good enough to find a new Khan to step in and fill the role and carry it forward? Like, a lot of people don't think, like most of the people who come and train, they don't think about that. And they don't, you know, they think when I die, my dojo will close and it doesn't matter. Like, then, you know, whatever, I will have lit in a bunch of candles so it will pass forward. But that's not really the same as what we're talking about right now. Right? Will Matsumura's legacy move forward? Will Yamaguchi's legacy move forward? That is your responsibility right now to find that. That is Sensei Legacy's responsibility to make sure that that happens. Right?
I've already done it. I'm out of that.
Nice. I love that. And there's a funny, isn't there a funny relationship between you want to do it and you feel the mantle? You know, if someone inspires you enough, Hanchi Legacy, Yamaguchi Sensei, right? The people that came before us, if they inspire you enough, it's weighty, but it's also, it's almost like you have no choice, and yet it's still joyful, right? It's still a joyful choice. I'll take it. I'll accept that responsibility, right? Yeah.
And then, you know, Sensei, as a teacher, you don't know, like little Reed, this kid comes in here, he's 5 years old. I actually look at him and say, that could be the kid that accepts the mantle of responsibility one day. Like, when I die. That's why, as a teacher, if you're serious about like moving that mantle forward, you don't overlook any student who walks in, right? Like, I have students who walk in here when we have a black belt meeting, they're like, Sensei, I think that kid should go. And I'm like, that kid is 7 years old and you were that kid. You're 20 right now, but you were that 7-year-old kid and I didn't look past you. So shut up and train him a little more.
Mhm.
Because when we're all gone, he might accept that mantle of responsibility and be the one who's carrying it forward.
So there you go. And then, so that's stepping into it, right? So there's an analogy for stepping into the responsibility, stepping into your role and trying to be the best fucking leader of generations you can be.
Right.
So Sensei, I know we're getting on, and I love this question here, as in you're the time guy, but you could put the mantle down. You could just go, and I'm not being glib with that. You feel the responsibility and you feel like you have to. And I guess my question is, because we're at very different phases in our martial arts. What is that? Why do you? Could you just put it down?
Not anymore. No, I tried when I lived northern Michigan. I tried to put the mantle down, and through many, many walks and reflections, I realized that I couldn't.
Yep.
And that's when I came back to Ann Arbor and picked it back up. And now something has happened. I've started this thing called JMAC, which has become the jewel. It's not me saying it, right?
Yep.
It's like
Yep.
it's like sorry, I mean, it's the fucking universe saying it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm done. I don't have any choice anymore. I will, when I can wake up and go, okay, I've successfully passed this on. When I can say with a smile what Hunchy said a few minutes ago, right? I've done it, but I'm not there yet. I just feel like in the last 5 years, I finally built that thing that the universe recognized.
Mm.
Yeah. White smoke or black smoke. When the Cardinals get together for a new pope, that's what happens, right? There's white smoke when there's a new pope, and there's black smoke when they can't make a decision.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We got to wrap this up.
Mm.
10 after 10. That was amazing.
Whew. Okay,
Crazy.
I'll chip in a little with that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. I want to say
We should go around just a couple of thoughts,
fuck.
because,
Okay,
and
great.
we should talk about what's coming, Sean, as well. Like, I know
Definitely,
we
we'll
wrapped
always
up in
get
the
to that.
moment, but
I just got a little wrapped up in the moment. Let's go around the horn. Hunchy Legacy.
I'm exhausted. My mind is exhausted. I have nothing else to say. Except getting together is always good. Any conversation, you pick up one thing. In martial arts, you pick up one thing and take it home with you. And it was a good day.
Thanks, Hunchy. Sensei Suino.
Great conversation. Great questions from Andrew, from Robert. Gentleman asked the first question. Jesse, yeah. Thank you guys for those questions. You really teed it off well tonight.
Sensei Dauphin.
I want to mention something to the group. A new student of Sensei Legacies, who's not a new student, like he's a black belt. His name is Chris Culver, and he does waste disposal. So, he drives a garbage truck around as a living, so he can never sign in live, but he listens to all of our conversations after the fact. And him and I were going back and forth, and he sent me a note, and I just want to share it with everybody. And he said, Chris Culver said, what you're doing, these stories that you share, not just from your guests, but from yourselves as well, have changed the way that I see martial arts, and how I see myself as a person as well. It's made me realize the responsibility I have to this art. I can't thank you enough for doing this every week. I'm inspired and moved every single time I watch. It often sounds like you're speaking directly to me, saying things that I need to hear. So I think we would all agree that that's probably, in addition to enjoying our own company, that's like a goal that we all probably had, that if even one person could pick that up and move forward. So we've met that goal, and now let's keep sparking that fire. And it kind of builds on what Sensei Suino just said, right? About taking that mantle and stepping into it. And yeah, so I wanted to share that with everybody. Next couple of weeks, I'm going to do a little bit of, what do you call that, Sean, when you tell somebody the plot of something before they've watched it?
Oh shit, teaser. Like a little bit of a teaser, a little bit of a
Foreshadowing?
Spoiler.
Spoiler, sorry. I'm going to give everybody a spoiler right now. At the end of June, this group of people and World Kabuto is going to do World Martial Arts Live 2. We're going to do that again. Honchitarian was very excited for us to announce it tonight. And so for a number of shows, we're going to have some really prominent instructors from World Martial Arts Live 1. And the next couple, it's not going to be all about World Martial Arts Live, but I'm just saying we're going to start trying to highlight some of those stories so that people can get excited about training with different people. And you're still going to learn all the great stuff that you're learning. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to do another host chat. And then we're going to have Hanchi Sai back on. Alan Sai, great guy, super amazing martial artist. And one of the things he wants to talk about is what we've been talking about tonight, which is the pedagogy of teaching. He wants to talk about, how do you teach a kid as opposed to how do you teach a 7th degree black belt? Like as an instructor, you should be a teacher who can cover all those bases. And then we're going to talk to Sensei David Toney, who is from Ireland. And again, great martial artist, runs a very big association with not tens of students, not hundreds of students, with thousands of students. So we're really excited to talk to him. And then again, we're going to have another host chat. Sensei Copeland put lots of comments in tonight. It was great. I feel like he was part of the show. He said, very deep tonight. And about Chris Culver, he said the best compliment. Yeah. Keep chipping in, Sensei Copeland. We love you watching and providing these inputs. The only thing would be better is if we got him on camera. So
yes, that'd be nice.
He's so good looking and deadly.
Say for sure.
Yeah.
Before I say the final thank yous, I just want to add something tonight. Like I really don't take for granted that I get to be a part of this show, and the host chat highlights my thinking in a different way. The hosting's a skill I have, but to be treated as a martial artist who gets to be one of the 4 on this. And I just, I came up with a thought years ago. If I had a quote that I'd put on my gravestone, it would be, if enough isn't, more won't be. And tonight, I came up with one based on being able to be a part of this conversation every week. And I'm going to sit with it for a while, but I just want to read you what I wrote. I hope I always know I belong, and I hope I always know my place. And I really thought about that tonight, because it's so nice to know I belong, and I hope I always know my place. And it's a beautiful 2 things to balance. So I just want to throw that out there, because that's what I thought about for Around the Horn. I just want to say thank you to Robert Schlumsky, Mike Russell, Victoria Feth, Justin Shea, Alden Adair, and Andrei Sedashev. They run this show behind the scenes. We do work behind the scenes as well, but that technical aspect, those posts you see, the reason our dates, the updates on the websites, they're killing that game, and we're so grateful for it. Good night, everybody.
Amazing show. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, you guys. Rock and roll.